welcome back Jay Payleitner.
We think that if we just kind of show up and go to church, our kids, no, they got to own it because they're going to be challenged.
Your faith and pass it on. Share the gospel clear and strong. Stand for, claim your heritage of truth.
Welcome to Heritage of Truth. Today we welcome back Jay Payleitner. Welcome.
Yo, hello, good to be here.
Yeah, well, we really enjoyed having you last time, so it's good to have you back.
Mm-hmm.
You have a new book out called 10 Conversations Kids Need to Have with Their Dad.
Mm-hmm.
You're good at this 10 whatever. Or...
Well, numbers, you know what? Dads don't read books. Sorry, dads don't read books. But, you know, I can do 52. I can do one thing at a time, and dads like numbers, and we've proven that. So you can judge a book by its cover. And there's a nice dad talking to his two kids on the cover.
Yeah.
10 conversations. Yeah.
That's good. What are some of these conversations that kids need to have with their dads?
Well, there you go. We need to have conversations. We have things that we want to say to our kids, truths that we want to convey. Maybe we're wrong, maybe we're right, but we still have this heart. This dads want their kids to get something from us. Mm-hmm. And I did boil it down to 10 conversations because I wanted to cover them just enough that they could be in depth enough. But we start with something easy. The first core chapter is on families. Just talk about families and traditions, so we can get people talking. It's pretty easy. Mm-hmm. A great question to ask, and I love the idea of lots of questions. I put some kind of sample conversations in the book even, but. What's the reputation of our family in the community? What do your friends say about our family? Mm-hmm. And then that's going to start a conversation. Your kid's going to say, "Oh, Dad, you don't want to know," or "Oh, we're just the kids the family that goes to church, or we're the family that with the obnoxious dad, or the family with a nerd dad, or we're the family where the kids are all athletes." So mm-hmm. That's a conversation you can have with your kids. Very easy, mm-hmm. and it might open up to other conversations or not.
Yeah,
and that's the first one.
How do you feel about?
Oh, absolutely.
How do you feel about that?
Well, that'd be a follow-up question.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
Sometimes the idea behind this book is you launch a conversation, and then you've got to pick it up on your own and go from there.
Wow. Yeah, because if you're seen as the nerd family, the kids might not.
No, not the nerd family. The nerd dad. I said the nerd
dad. Dad. Yeah, okay. So
and that's okay. You know what? I think that dads should embarrass their kids once in a while.
Yeah, you said that the last time. You said they should embarrass their daughters because that one was on daughters.
Oh, okay, very good. I stand by that. You see, I'm corroborating that your earlier guest who was very wise.
Yeah,
that was me. That was me, wasn't it?
Oh yes, I think it was. So you start the book with a quiz.
Oh, yeah.
Tell me about this quiz.
Well, the quiz is a quiz that nobody should take because we hate the answers. 12 questions. And I won't do them all. Does your child spend more time texting with his friends than talking to you?
Oh.
Yikes.
Mm-hmm.
Do you get one-word answers for most of your questions? Words like fine, okay, later, whatever, that kind of thing. When your kids come home, do they go right to their separate rooms, hiding away, playing video games? Or do they kind of want to seek you out? And do they like being with you? That's the kind of question. And then just skipping down here, if you have a teenager, mm-hmm. most dads I've talked to have this sense that it's their house, they're paying the mortgage, they own that bedroom that their kids live in, but there's like this invisible force field. Like a dad can't go into their teenager's bedroom. I mean, I hear that often in different ways. Mm-hmm. And the point is that we need to converse with our kids, especially bedtime is a great time to connect with your kids. Mm-hmm. So if you can go, you need to work to go into read your 4-year-old bedtime stories and talk about their day, because they want you to. 4-year-old wants you to come in, and so does a 7-year-old, and a 9-year-old. But then if you keep doing it, and you're entering their world, and it's a positive experience. It's a positive experience.
The conversations that you talk about that we need to have with your kids, should they be fun?
You know what? They should always be positive. Okay. They should always end on a positive note. They should always. Have a sense that your son or daughter, even if they got dressed down, even if you had to, take them to task for something, or even if you had to remind them, listen, you took charge of the lawn this summer, and it's getting long, and now it's going to seed. It's my job. It's my responsibility. Or other even more serious things. Mm-hmm. If you enter your kid's world, that's one of the early principles that I kind of draw out. Enter your kid's world. Mm-hmm. Earn the right to say what needs to be said. Because, dads, they think they can just say anything to their kids. But no, you got to earn the right. You have to, respect them and listen to them and know what's going on with their world. And then the third part of the book, and I try to make this, I don't lecture to dads, but I say, listen, you got to, if you're going to talk to your kids, you have to think about ahead of time. You got to know your own faith. You can't share ideas about work unless you with your kids, unless you've thought about that. You can't share ideas about finances or about love and sex and marriage unless you've kind of thought through your own positions on it. If your kid does ask you a question that you can't answer, that's fine. It's like, that's a really good question. Let's kick it around together. But in general, you have to kind of have some roots and some foundation because they're counting on that. They're counting on Dad to be the rock, the foundation. So when they go to him for questions or problems or challenges, he's gonna at least not be crazy about it.
Yeah.
Not that I've ever been crazy about anything,
You?
Yeah. Yes, for sure.
You closely connect laughter and conversation. What are some recommendations you have for adding laughter to family life?
Well, some serious chapters. I mean, 10 conversations, and there's some serious ones. Decision making and big picture thinking, and questions on eternity conversations. But one of the chapters is conversations on laughter. And really, it's an excuse for me to tell some silly stories and to remind dads to have fun with their kids. And I tell a story about a vacation I had. We went to Washington, D.C., and it was just tragic. Every time we turned around, we were getting late and blisters and dragging kids to places. It was just, but man, oh man, the conversations that week were miserable. We were at each other's throat. Not too bad, but afterwards, we've laughed about that vacation. So embrace miserable vacations. Get a dog that chews up shoes, because you're making memories. You're doing laughter with your kids. Do lemonade stands and do silly stuff with your kids, so you're laughing with your kids. Because another thing is, my kids are growing up in the videotape age, and I have hundreds of miles of videotape of terrible band concerts and terrible choir concerts and hundreds of wrestling matches that never looked at. But the best ones to look at now are the ones where you just kind of are everyday videos, where you just, the oldest and the youngest are playing piano, goofing around, playing chopsticks, and you just shoot a few minutes of it, or you put a video camera on the floor and you just let the baby play for a while, and they put stuff in their mouth, or when or kids in the bubble bath. So shoot every day, not shoot video every day, but shoot everyday video.
Right.
And then later on, pull that out, and that's one of the recommendations in the book. If you want to have a conversation with your kids, go pull out a videotape from just 5 years ago. Not 5 years ago, and they will talk and laugh and point and just be goofy.
Yeah.
And so that's a chapter on conversations about laughter.
Yeah. And it seems to me that when you have a conversation like that, which starts out with laughter, you can get to the serious things, and they'll be more open.
Yes, that's the whole secret to this book.
Oh, sorry.
No. It's good. You give them the secret is that you get them talking. It's a positive experience talking with Dad. And if you're having trouble getting started talking, and maybe some dads, I'm vociferous, but there are some dads who might not be. And so each of the chapters ends with 4 or 5 questions that you can ask word for word. Is it creativity when someone fills in the outlined image in a coloring book with a crayon? That's a question you could ask, to your 6-year-old. Is it creativity, or maybe to your 15-year-old, is it creativity when someone fills in an outlined image in a coloring book with a crayon? It's interesting. Is it? Do you think it is? Is that creativity?
It depends on how they do it.
Well, yes. Right. So it's an interesting conversation, open-ended. And then there are also, every chapter has some conversations to pursue. You can think back into when you were their age, or some scripture quotes. So God created mankind in his own image. In the image he created them. What does that mean? So God created us in his own image. So that makes we are creators too. And then if your kids are older, you can start talking about, isn't it a shame that some people are artists and they call themselves creative, but they do nasty, dirty, creepy stuff.
Yeah.
That's a gift they got from the Creator. I mean, their creativity, the ability to do terrible movies and terrible, and write terrible books, is a gift from the Creator, and this is a shame. And that's a conversation. If you have a fun conversation about creativity, with your older kids especially, you can kind of morph that into
Yeah.
more serious conversations.
Yeah,
Very wise, very
that's
perceptive
good.
of you, Jeanne.
Yes, I know. What do you say to dads who don't really know how to begin conversations?
The idea of starting now and forcing yourself and being intentional about it. And you know what? That's kind of who this book is written for, is dads who are going, man, I need to cover these areas. And, or even more interesting is that the idea that, yeah, I've talked about this, I've talked about creativity, and I've talked about money with my kids, but I've never talked about a work ethic, or I've never had the birds and the bees talk, or I've never talked about eternity with my kids. I need to talk about that. So there might be some chapters you go, all right, I got this covered, and some ideas that, oh, I need to really cover that, the idea of big picture thinking. Moms kind of teach the kids how to love and nurture. And it's hard, you can't, I don't want to put everybody in a box, but in general, that's moms kind of do that.
Right.
And dads, I think, kids get their worldview from their dads, I think. And you prove that by, if there's a homework assignment, mom just wants to get them to get done so they can get on with life kind of thing, right? At the end of the... But
I think it depends
yeah,
again on the mom.
oh, true. Thank you, and I apologize for that sweeping generalization. But dads are more likely to look at a geography assignment or a history assignment or a math assignment and start talking. Oh, what's that? And talk about what it means in the biblical sense and in the worldview, and start talking about geopolitical reasoning and things like that. Or an astronomy assignment suddenly becomes a look at who put those stars out there. I mean, we're not just looking at looking for the North Star or the Big Dipper. Put those stars out there. Man, God, that's how wide God's hand is. The universe. That's God's hand out there.
Yeah.
So there you go, worldview kind of thing. And you're right. I
Yeah.
apologize. I don't mean to. I'm just challenging.
That's okay.
What I'm doing is challenging dads to get the job done.
Yeah. I think it's really important for dads to do that. My
Yeah.
father was really good
There you go.
at opening our eyes to things.
Yeah.
He's the one who helped us to see the beauty and the glory in creation and see God behind it. He's the one who taught us when we saw someone on the streets, living on the streets, to see with compassion.
A teachable moment that
Yeah.
it's a long conversation. I mean, with an older kid, you can really have a long conversation on how we judge those people. Yeah, for sure, absolutely. That's why you're a good interviewer today, is because your dad poured that into you.
He was a great man. So the last chapter is on eternity. You've kind of mentioned that a little bit.
Yeah.
Is that like the most important, do you think? The most
Well,
thing?
absolutely. If you miss out on that, you could have the best kids in the world, successful in the eyes of the world, but if you've lost eternity, you've gained nothing. You might not be the one who leads them to Christ, to that moment of salvation, but you could certainly you're setting the table for that. And if you can be there, all the better. With some of my kids, I wasn't there. It's like, I was kind of mad. It's like, oh, what? You've accepted Christ? I wasn't there.
You wanted to be there.
I wanted to be there. Silly, but
That's not silly.
you need to talk about immortality. I mean, and don't scare kids. Kids need to know about hell, but don't talk to your 3-year-old about hell. They just won't get it. I mean,
no.
right? So you
That'll
got
just
to
give them nightmares.
Right.
Yeah.
But you know what? To your 15-year-old, that's a conversation to say. What do you know? What you could even ask that. Ask the question. What are your friends? What do you think about that? The idea of anticipating heaven, the idea of your kids have to own it. Sometimes we think that if we just kind of show up and go to church, our kids own it. No, they got to own it because they're going to be challenged. Your kids are going to, even if they're solid and they're with you, they're tracking. You have to equip them. We can't just protect our kids anymore. We can't protect them. We have to equip them, because their faith will be challenged by their friends, by college professors, and even we want our kids to challenge their own faith so that they think it through and they own it for themselves.
Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's so important.
Yeah.
That's so important.
So the last chapter is a conversation on eternity, which is really a salvation message in there. And actually, a couple places, two different places in here, I kind of give you the exact words to say to lead your child to Christ. If you haven't done that yet, I mean, kind of this 4 spiritual laws thing, but in a different version. I talked to a few people. I wanted to get it right, so I got my pastor and a couple of the folks to go, how do we do this the right way? But I did it in my own friendly words.
Yeah. Well, one of the things that I learned, I was very surprised at, was our daughter did not realize that she could talk to us about anything until we specifically said, you can talk to us about anything. She goes, I can? You know, she was shocked.
Was she younger or?
She was probably about 10.
Yeah, okay. That's,
Yeah.
that's a good age. That's a good
Yeah.
age to realize that. Or
Yeah.
to go like, oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, fantastic. And you said, no, you can't. We don't want to talk about it. No.
Well, no, she was starting to show a little bit of rebellion at that point,
Mm-hmm.
and we told her, as long as you're respectful, you can tell
Right.
us anything. You
Yeah.
can tell us if you think we're wrong, as long as it's in a
Oh.
respectful way.
Yeah, for sure. That's excellent.
Yeah.
That's very good. That should be a chapter in the book. I mean, I kind of cover that idea of opening up
Yeah.
and making yourself available. But the idea of telling your kids, yeah, you can talk to us about anything is really good.
This whole idea of the conversations that you have in your books is really, really good, and I am
Thank you.
excited that you keep doing these books.
It's a privilege, you know what? And I talk to rooms full of dads, and I'd love to any of your listeners. I'd love to come out to the church and talk to a room full of dads, or moms, or parents, or husbands and wives. But when I talk to a group of dads, and they come up afterwards and say, Jay, you know what? I want to desperately connect with my kids. I desperately want to connect with my kids. And I want to say, weren't you listening? But then the idea of, you need to open those doors of conversation. And it doesn't happen automatically. You have to earn the right. You have to kind of...
You have to work at it, too. You have to take the time.
Well, yeah. But if you look at it as work, it should be a blast. When your kids walk away and you've had a good conversation, you might be exhausted, but it should be a blast.
Well, where can people find you online?
My website is my first and last name.com. It's hard. Jaypayleitner, Payleitner, J. Payleitner. But you know what? If you Google, my books are 52 Things Kids Need from a Dad, 52 Things Daughters Need from a Dad, that kind of thing. So
I was wrong.
If you
it
Google,
wasn't always 10, it's 52.
Well, 52 is my earlier books.
That's right.
But 52 Things, I'm sorry, 52 Things Kids Need from a Dad, or jpayleitner.com. And if you spell it wrong, it'll get to me. And thanks for asking.
Okay. Well, thank you so much for being our guest again. I hope to see you again.
I promise.
Stand